I never thought a simple family gathering would reveal a family secret. And I am part of that secret. Chapter 18. It's so lovely to have you here, Grandma shouted, wrapping her small but strong arms around me. I let go of Gabriel's hand to give her a hug in return, smiling widely as she finally pulled away and turned to look at the man standing beside me. Grandma, this is Gabriel, I introduced, wrapping an arm around Gabriel and tucking myself into his warm body. It's great to finally meet you. Ma'am, Gabriel offered her a stiff but polite smile. I could tell he was feeling nervous and I reached for his hand, giving it a squeeze. He relaxed slightly, and I slid my gaze back to Grandma, who was giving him one of her friendliest smiles. It's great to meet you too, Gabriel. I've heard a lot about you from my Viola, she replied. I felt Gabe slightly tense as Grandma laid her claim on me. I just ran my thumb over his knuckles and leaned against him more. I cleared my throat to hurry up the introductions as it was pretty cold outside, and I was only wearing a sweatshirt. Hurry on inside, guys, and I'll show you your rooms, she offered, opening her door wider to let us fit through. Gabe, seeming to realize how cold I was, took off his coat and draped it over my shoulder, hugging me to his chest like a burrito. I slipped my tennis shoes off and he did the same before I looked at him approachfully. I'm fine, I informed him. He shook his head, pressing a kiss to the top of my head. Just keep it on until you are feeling a little warmer. Please. I don't want you to catch a cold that might ruin your fun family time, Gabriel begged. His lips formed a concerned pout and I couldn't help but lean up and press a kiss to them, pulling away in his hold as far as his arms would allow before smiling. To my authentic 𝐊𝐤𝐬𝐷𝐞𝐝, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I love you, I whispered the last part. His whole face lit up and he stared at me with adoration. I love you, he replied, pulling me in for one more squeeze before he finally let me go and returned to face Grandma, who was staring at us with a small smile on her face. I blushed and cleared my throat again. So our rooms? I asked her. She nodded, clapping her hands. Wait. Okay. Viola, you're going to be upstairs in the red room. Gabe, I have a bed made up for you in the basement with all the boys. You are welcome to keep your luggage in the red room as well though. I nodded, linking my fingers with Gabe's and tugging him up the stairs. I don't get to sleep with you, he whined quietly when we got to the top of the stairs. I gave him my best. Are you serious? Lookin laughed when he shrugged. Remember what I told you. No more sleepovers until we are married. Come on, lover boy. Tugging him into my room, Gabe set down our suitcases and then made a leap for the bed, tackling me down with him on the way. I shrieked and gasped when my back hit the mattress and Gabriel pinned down my arms. I love you so much, sweetheart. And I take back what I said about you taking off the jacket when you are warm. I never want you to take it off. You look absolutely adorable. He mumbled against my neck while he peppered kisses up and down the sensitive skin. I love you too, Gabe. But you know, I cut myself off by letting a quiet moan slip out. If you want me to be more comfortable while we are doing more physical activities, you should really let me take off this heavy coat. He pulled away and helped me take it off before he pinned me on the bed again with his hips. You are enchanting, he murmured, leaning down to connect our lips. Gabriel let out a groan and pulled himself off of me, flopping down on my other side. I hate being interrupted, he said in response to my questioning look. Suddenly the door was flung open and my cousins came pouring in. Sam shouted, opening up his arms for a hug. I jumped right into them when a body collided into my side. 𝐊𝐤𝐧𝐠. I laughed, ruffling his hair even though the 15-year-old was much taller than me. Who's this guy? Sam asked, pulling out of the hug and staring at Gabriel who looked like he couldn't decide if he liked my cousins or not. This Gabriel, he's my boyfriend. I told them. That got a mischievous look on his face and I could tell he was about to tease me. Oh, a boyfriend. Are you in love? I blushed and looked at Gabriel, who was already looking at me. Yes, I am, I said, smiling at Gabriel, who gave me a tender smile back. I turned around to look at Sam and Zach. They were wearing matching expressions of complete disgust. EW, that's nasty. Zach whined. I just snorted. Have you seen yourself after a soccer game? Hands on my hips offensively. To my 𝐿𝐷𝐞𝐝 𝐬𝐼𝐴𝐷𝐿. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing 𝐿𝐷𝐼𝐴𝐷𝐿. Point taken. My comedian cousins decided to leave the room while Gabe and I unpacked. I won't ever tire of hearing you say that. Gabriel mumbled, circling his arms around me from behind and his neck so his lips settled on mine. I shivered at the contact, reaching one hand up and into his hair while the other hand rested on top of his large and warm ones on my stomach. It's still pretty weird to me, I admitted, sighing and relaxing into his arms further. My eyes closed in complete content. What is, sweetheart? Gabriel breathed against my skin. I turned slowly in his arms, my own coming up and wrapping around his neck, keeping myself firmly against him. Being in love. I have dreamed about falling in love for years. I'll admit this is a little different than what I had in mind. But Gabriel, he hummed. I wouldn't change our love story for one moment if it meant we didn't end up right here, with me in your arms. We were a little late for dinner. After a full week of introducing Gabriel to family members, eating heaps of food, and being around people I loved, I was reluctant to leave. So when Grandma asked for us all to gather in the living room with her, I didn't hesitate to drag Gabriel with me. He of course made me take a seat on his lap. He had gotten much more comfortable showing affection in front of my family, and held on to me tightly. I didn't mind. He was comfortable. I'm so glad you guys were all able to come this week. Nothing makes me happier than seeing my family all together. Smiling and laughing, she started. I noticed the way her voice wavered as if she was emotional. I realized that she looked far older than she used to, and suddenly a bubble of anxiety formed in my stomach. Gabriel could tell. His lips pressed against the top of my head, his arms tensing around me. I snuggled backward into him to draw what comfort I could to soothe my fears. I was sure it was nothing. I love you guys. The last thing I wanted was a holiday where everyone was worried about me, so I waited until today to share with you guys something I've known for a while. I have stage 4 lung cancer, she whispered, a tear slipping out of her eye. I was shocked. Grandma was my rock. She wasn't supposed to die. She was only 65. She had a lot left in her. There had to be something we could do. We can just get treatment. Right? My Uncle Ricky asked, his face pale and hands shaking, echoing my own hopes. Grandma just smiled softly and shook her head. I have declined treatment. The doctors gave me 8 months, even with the treatment, and I don't want to have meds messing with my mind in the time I have left. Chemo is painful and pointless for me, she explained. I hadn't moved yet. My mind was frozen as was my body. I have stage 4 lung cancer. The doctors gave me 8 months. I could barely breathe, but Gabriel's presence was enough for me to let some air in. How long do you have now? How long have you known? Sam whispered. My big, strong older cousin who had fought make-believe dragons for me was reduced to whispers in his shock. Gabriel cradled me tighter against him, pressing his lips to the top of my head and not moving them. I might be here for Valentine's Day. Grandma smiled brightly while the rest of us felt our hearts break. I felt my emotions threatening to get the better of me, so I tilted my head back to speak with my mate. Get me out of here. I need to get out of here, I ordered him pathetically. My voice came out so quiet and weak. Gabriel wasted no time, still cradling me tightly against him. To my 𝐴𝐴𝐷𝐞𝐝 𝐬𝐼𝐴𝐷𝐿. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing 𝐿𝐷𝐼𝐴𝐷𝐿. It was lovely to be here, he mumbled out graciously before we were outside and in the back seat of his car. Sweetheart, I can't imagine what you are going through emotionally right now, but I love you. You can talk to me about it. I can talk and distract you, or neither of us can speak and I can just hold you. It is completely up to you. My love, my sweet werewolf cooed. His legs sprawled across all the other seats, settling me against his chest and letting my legs lie in between his. I gripped his shirt in my fists, I don't know what to say. I told him honestly. That's valid. It's okay to be feeling what you are feeling. Gabriel soothed. I nodded, sniffling. My grandma was the only person I could trust for a really long time. I love her so much. She's probably one of the main reasons we're even together. Everything she's done for me was important and needed, and I can't do not having her or her support or her love again. I know it's ridiculous, but I can't help but feeling like I should have known. I should have noticed how tired she looked all week. She is normally so active. I rushed out. I wasn't sure if what I was saying made sense to him. It didn't even make sense to me. I had a wall blocking myself from feeling the reality of the situation. It's okay for you to not have noticed. She was hiding it really well. Sweetheart, she loves you. That's why you are going to miss her. And that's okay. You are not alone though. You won't ever be again. I will always love you. And I am always ready to help you out in whatever way you need. Gabriel promised. His speech full of love and compassion finally broke the dam, and I cried. I cried for all the things my grandma would miss, and I selfishly cried for myself. Because I knew that missing her wouldn't go away. Gabriel just held me tenderly, letting me cry my heart out until I finally, 𝐿𝐸𝐧𝐼𝐻𝐸 𝐿𝐸𝐴𝐻𝐸𝐸𝐴𝐻𝐸𝐸𝐻𝐸𝐸𝐻𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀𝐀 good. Mrs. McCleary. I swatted at Gabriel, who was trying to pull me back against him for some more cuddling. I'm on a phone call. Gabe. I whispered to him angrily. Wonderful. The children have been missing you. I'll tell them they can look forward to Saturday, she replied. Hanging up. I smiled as I cut the call and tossed my phone aside, turning around and flinging my arms around Gabriel. I take it you're happy. Gabriel mumbled against me while I placed light kisses against his chest. Shut it. I know you heard the entire phone call. Of course I'm happy. Those kids are practically my own kids. I didn't birth them, but for 2 months I was more of a mother to them than their own. Plus, I'm not convinced they are being well taken care of right now. I know it's important to keep families together, but I think I was doing a better job, I said honestly. Whoa, truth bomb much. Babe. Gabriel laughed, his bright smile sending all kinds of warm and fuzzy thoughts to my brain. I flushed at his words, making me feel embarrassed. Okay. To my 𝐊𝐤𝐧𝐿𝐬 𝐷𝐿𝐬. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, 𝐿𝐬𝐧𝐰. While I don't have the experience most parents have, I loved those kids, and I put their needs before my own. I really cared about them. That's the basic foundation of being a good parent. Trying to justify my words as I walked away from Gabriel and towards my kitchen. Right. Gabe agreed, following behind me. Speaking of parents. Trailing off and looking at Gabriel with a shy smile on my face. Don't you think it's time I met yours? His broad smile dropped into a look of apprehension and discomfort. Immediately the air grew thicker, and my body became tenser in anticipation of his response. I love you, Gabriel whispered, while his words already filled me with joy and warmth. They almost felt like a goodbye, like he had to remind me before he delivered news that may ruin us. I haven't told them about you yet. I flinched, but then I shook myself off and offered a brave smile. Okay, well, how about you start with that and then I'll introduce myself to them, I asked instead. He started and stopped just as soon. I could hear the heartbreak in his voice. I was torn between reaching out for him and stepping away, so I settled with nodding at him in encouragement. They don't. And then he let out a growl, raking his hands through his hair. I watched, heartbroken, as the man I loved fell apart. They didn't want me to have a human mate. I don't want them to hate you. They don't believe humans are adequate at official pack jobs, he finally spat out, his eyes full and watery as he looked at me desperately. Gabriel. Why, my voice cracked. I couldn't help it. He had kept such a huge secret from me for so long I couldn't fathom it. My mind was trying to wrap around it, while my heart was crying out to comfort the poor broken man in front of me. Why wouldn't you say something sooner? We've been together for months, I whispered, hugging myself tightly. I didn't want you to think that their beliefs reflected my own opinions. I love you, human, werewolf. To my agent extraordinaire, 𝐿𝐿𝐬𝐷. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I can't imagine wanting to love anyone else. I can't picture someone better to marry me someday. I didn't want you to meet them because I won't be able to handle it if they don't accept you. Gabriel confessed, a tear slipping out as he licked his plum-red lips. I will choose you over them 1,000 times, but to be forced to choose between the woman I love and the people who raised me, whom I also love, especially when I'm already so stretched thin about this pet betrayal. His voice escalated into a yell as the panic worked its way onto his features and into the tremoring timbre of his voice. Will quite possible destroy me. I rushed towards him, wrapping him up tightly in my arms. I pulled his head down and he let me, wrapping his arms around my waist snugly while I pressed kisses to his forehead and cheeks. I love you. I held him tightly for what felt like hours but was only maybe a minute and a half. I pulled back when he let out a pathetic-sounding whimper and a sad little no escaped him. Come with me, I explained, gripping his hand tightly and pulling him out of my apartment. Where are we going? Throwing his arm over my shoulder and hugging me to his side. It wasn't the most efficient way to walk, but it was working okay and that was all I could ask for. I am taking you on a fun day, I announced. I shivered when the wind blew and the bitterly cold 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐬 pierced through my sweater. Put on a coat before you leave. For heaven's sake. Gabriel grumbled, his arms rubbing up and down on mine. It's very thoughtful of you to do this. But I have to get back to the pack. I have a meeting today with a suspect, as well as additional training with the warriors. He replied, Well, what time is your meeting? Looking up at him, for PM. Well then we have 2 hours of fun before I'm getting you back there, where you are going to absolutely blow the socks off everyone. But, in a completely reasonable and safe way, I encouraged. I pulled him along until we got to a trampoline park I knew Michael worked part-time at. Why are we here? Confused. Have you ever jumped on a trampoline? Gabriel. Looking up at him while I started removing my shoes. His face flushed slightly and my mood deflated slightly. Before a steely resolve filled me, I had a lot of responsibilities, even as a child, plus the children raised in the village. While they get to live with protection, also live without many popular human toys since they don't get to the rest of the world often. Gabriel explained. I nodded sympathetically. It made sense, but it didn't mean that I wasn't going to rectify it. It just means that I have a lot of things that I will get to show you. He gave me a small grin and followed my example by sliding off his own shoes. Viola, what are you doing here? I heard Michael's voice from behind us. I turned around and saw him strolling over with a big smile. I smiled back widely, reaching behind me and holding Gabriel's hand, because I was starting to learn that he needed reassurance that I was his, just as he was mine, especially around men, taking this guy out on a day of fun. I replied, resting my other hand on Gabriel's heart and looking up at my sweet werewolf, who was very clearly trying to stake his claim. His arm was wound tightly around my waist, and his face was intimidatingly stoic. Well, that sure sounds exciting. My name is Michael, he addressed Gabriel. Gabriel nodded at him. Gabriel, are you two here on a date? Michael asked, still smiling at us. I nodded enthusiastically yup. We've been dating a few months now. To my agent extraordinaire, 𝐿𝐿𝐬𝐿𝐬𝐿. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I explained, reaching up to press a kiss to Gabriel's cheek. I whispered in his ear while I was up there. Relax. Michael is just a friend. And I love you. I felt Gabriel's hold loosen some and I counted it as a win. Wow, congratulations. Can I help you guys get set up? All you have to do is sign this release form, and you can go ahead and pay for your time in increments of half hours. Michael explained. Babe. Giving the power to Gabriel. I've also learned he is most comfortable when he's in charge. Sure. We'll get an hour, Gabe told him. Michael nodded, walking away to the computers behind the registration desk, gesturing for us to follow. What do we even do here? Gabriel asked once Michael left us. We jump, I answered, laughing giddily. Just sign here. And here. Then I'll stamp your hands and you'll be free to go, Michael told us. We did as he asked, and then we walked up the stairs and straight for the field of trampolines in front of us. Gabriel saw the little kids bouncing high and looked astounded. He turned to me with an adorable expression of delight and wonderment on his face. Look how high they can jump. They're human, he exclaimed in awe. I laughed and leapt onto a tramp in front of him, pushing off and launching as high as I could. Gabe's eyes widened comically when he saw how high I got. How are you doing that? Shocked, I let out a wild whoop, then shouted behind me as I launched myself across trampoline after trampoline. Follow me. I let my body collide with a more vertical trampoline and I fell onto my butt, still bouncing slightly as I watched Gabriel timidly boing his way over. He looked nervous, and whenever someone was on the same trampoline as his he wobbled. He finally made it over to me with an annoyed expression on his face. Why would you jump onto the wall like that? Viola, you could have been hurt, he grunted. I stood from the ground and jumped into the wall again, this time letting it fling me back to a standing position beside him. It doesn't hurt. You have to jump harder, Gabriel. It's only fun when you let yourself go, I explained to him, bounding away again. He once again followed me timidly, kicking his way over obstacles. When he made it to me, I had already formed a plan on how to get him to forget himself and let go. I sprung up, latching myself around his body, pressing my forehead against his. His eyes immediately brightened to their brilliant brown that meant he was turned on. I let out lips brush against each other as I spoke. If you want to catch me, Gabriel, you're going to have to try harder than that. I whispered breath 𝐿𝐲, jumping down and shrieking loudly when I heard him following me as I jumped from tramp to tramp. I got to a large rectangle one and decided to show off a little bit. I launched into a front handspring followed by a triple front flip, landing solidly and shooting straight up, before letting my body go absolutely limp so I would flop about more. I hit the tramp one time before Gabriel caught me and laughed joyously. You are right. Jumping high, with me in his arms. I laughed with him and freed myself, content to just bounce along beside him. How'd you learn to flip like that? 𝐾𝐥𝐻𝐸 𝐿𝐷𝐸𝐿𝐷𝐸𝐿𝐷𝐸𝐿𝐷𝐸𝐿𝐷𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐿𝐷𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 growing up, I used to go out and jump every day, I told him, slightly out of breath. I loved jumping, but I was still human, and still got tired often. That's fun, Gabriel commented. We jumped until our hour was up, thanked Michael and began walking back to my apartment. Let's get you ready for your meeting, I instructed as soon as we walked through the door. Mind if I take a quick shower? I nodded, pointing at the bathroom. To my 𝐴𝐴𝐻𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 𝐂𝐝 It's just right there. He walked in and shut the door while I opened up the closet. He had stored a few of his clothes here and taken nearly half of my wardrobe to his place, claiming we had made it to that point. What is your meeting about? Are you confronting them? I asked through the door. No, he's a well-respected security wolf, and I have to meet with him and Joel. He wanted to meet with me, so he set up the meeting, but I will not meet alone with him. He would be able to distort my words and lay blame on me that I do not deserve. He doesn't know that Joel is going to be there with me too, Gabriel answered. That's very smart of you, I approved, feeling proud of my mate. Thanks, sweetheart. Are you nervous about it? I don't know. I know I am stronger than him, but he definitely has a lot of support. There was another riot last night, he admitted. I gasped. Was anyone hurt? What happened? Thinking of Joel's family and how kind they had been to me, I wouldn't know what to do if they were injured. Everyone is okay, They left some graffiti on the pack house before Joel got outside and scared them off. Gabe explained. They are a bunch of cowards. I exclaimed, frustrated. I agree. I decided to let getting ready in peace, so I just reminded him that I loved him and I walked out of my bedroom. Once he had gotten dressed, he emerged from the bathroom to find me curled up on the couch in one of his hoodies and bundled in my thickest blanket, sipping hot chocolate and watching some TV. I glanced up from my comfy position to see him snapping a picture of me. I blushed and stood up, still wrapped up. I waddled over to him and wrapped my arms around his waist, snuggling in and closing my eyes. I placed a tender kiss to his chest above his heart and sighed comfortably. I felt his arms combing through my hair and decided I could have stayed content in that position for 100 years. I felt safe. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm, and loved. I heard a car whiz by on the street outside, and it snapped me out of my Gabe-induced haze. Good luck in your meeting, babe, I wished him, slowly opening my eyes and stepping back. He let out a soft growl, reaching out and pulling my swaddle thumb back against him. I raised no complaints, only blinked sleepily up at him. You're coming with me, he grumbled, his arms around me. I wanted to laugh at his possessiveness, but I only yawned and mumbled why. My eyes were already sliding closed. I couldn't help it. He was warm and so comfortable, and I felt so safe. It was nearly impossible to stay awake. Gabriel swiped my knees out from under me and held me bridal style against him, my arms wrapping loosely around his neck so I could cuddle my face against him. His chest was rippling with possessive growls that only filled me with comfort. It's not safe for you to be unprotected right now, Gabriel replied, pressing a gentle kiss to my head. I nodded and snuggled into him further. I didn't really care what was happening. I was so comfortable. Gabriel carried me out to his truck, set me in the passenger side, still bundled up, and climbed into the driver's seat for the drive ahead of us. I love you, I mumbled out through a yawn as I turned on my side to face him. I watched a happy, satisfied grin blossom on his face. He turned and a few strands of his hair fell into his eyes. I love you too, sweetheart. Are you tired? Amused. I stayed up late last night, and I guess going to the trampoline park wore me out, I told him, blinking harshly to keep myself awake. I could fall asleep once he was eating, but I found that I couldn't bear to miss even a moment of talking with him. What were you doing so late? Gabriel wondered. I had a killer assignment for school. I explained. I don't like that school is keeping you up so late. Why not lighten your course load? Gabriel asked. The frustration he felt at my not being at my physical best because of school evident. I would, but then I'd have to go to school longer, and I can't afford many more years. The more classes I take, the sooner I can graduate and start using my degree. I told him, shifting uncomfortable as we went over a bump. Sorry, he apologized for my discomfort. And you know that I will pay for school. You don't have to worry about money now. Gabe, I love you, and I love that you take care of me, more than you'll ever know. But I just can't ask you, or let you, support me through school. That makes me feel like I'm using you. I won't ever be able to pay you back for it. I try to explain. I love you too. That's why it shouldn't bother you. I want to take care of you. I don't like thinking that you are struggling or unhealthy when I could easily lighten your load. I love you. That isn't going to change, Gabriel told me. I felt my cheeks grow warm and I averted my gaze at the sweet words that had sent my heart racing. We aren't even married, Gabe. Appropriate for you to be supporting me. It's not how I was raised. I mumbled rather awkwardly. I am your mate. And all that entails. I will love you. I will support you. I will be yours. Please let me support you, he asked again. I only shook my head, completely red in the face. In Indiana, I had always been pretty, but I was very inexperienced at receiving compliments. My exes were all nice enough, but they never made such extravagant promises and certainly never professed love as often and as beautifully as my Gabriel. I was embarrassed at the attention and felt like a little schoolgirl in comparison to how much of a man he was. I love you. I am your mate, as you are mine. But it makes me uncomfortable to have a boyfriend supporting me. My family would never allow it, and I would feel like you were buying my affection. I never want to feel as though I owe you anything, because the best relationships are when both partners give freely out of love, not obligation, I finally said after I had gathered myself. Gabriel hummed, and then he stopped the car, hopping out and walking around to pull me out of the car. I looked around to see we were outside of what Gabriel had referred to as the pack house, the same place we'd eaten dinner with Joel's family. What are we doing here? Shivering at the bitter winter air, Gabriel noticed my coldness and buried me into his chest. I have a guest bedroom here. I sleep in it when I work late and too tired to drive or run home. You are to stay in there while I'm having my meeting in the office. Are we clear? Gabriel asked. I just laughed as I grinned cheekily up at him. Sir, yes. I giggled. He rolled his eyes, his serious look breaking as he chuckled. To my 𝐴𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐼𝐻𝐿 𝐷𝐿𝐿. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing 𝐿𝐢𝐳𝐧𝐰 enthusiasm. Little soldier, let's get you inside. I'm going to have Josh standing outside of my door while you take your nap. Don't worry, it's just to make sure you're safe. We'll have him doing something else so it doesn't look like he's guarding you. But if Joel or I can't be there with you, I trust Jake take care of you accurately, Gabriel reasoned, leading me into the house. Josh is who again? I yawned. I was too tired for my brain to function properly. Joel's little brother. Gabriel laughed. Oh yeah, I like that kid. He's funny. Gabriel's smile faded and he looked angry. Not as much as I like you though. At my addition he gave me a sheepish smile. Good luck with your meeting, babe. I love you. Knock him dead, I advised, nodding wisely, before he set me in his bed, pulling a thick comforter that smelled faintly of him over my body and kissing my forehead. I love you. To good night, my little soldier. And then I faded into a world of soft dreams where my werewolf and I could be happy and live peacefully without looming threats like civil war and cancer and student loans hanging over. Chapter 25. Ola. Kate yelled, sprinting over to me through the parking lot. I bent slightly, making sure to support my weight in my knees, and opened my arms to catch her. Hi, cutie. Giving her a big hug. Bailey was barely laughing and trying to run away, while his mom had put one of those harness backpacks with leashes on him so he couldn't get far. 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐻𝐿. He was shrieking. I gave him a bright smile as I pulled away from Kate and stood up. Hi, Bailey boy. He collapsed into more laughter and I laughed of my own. Then I reached for Max, who had been hovering nearby, but was too cool to initiate affection. I gave him a tight hug as well, before greeting their parents. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. How's it going? I asked them, all the kids now at my side. They gave me apprehensive smiles. Pretty good, Viola. We will be back into hours. We just have a business luncheon in Salt Lake City, and it's too far to take the kids. We'll be back soon though. They have their coats and winter shoes in case you want to do anything outside, Mr. �McCleary answered while Mrs. �McCleary waved at all the kids. Sounds great. We'll see you guys soon, I exclaimed, waving goodbye to them as Mrs. �McCleary passed me Bailey's leash. Bye kids, Mr. �McCleary called, walking away and back to their car. Bye Mom. Bye Dad. Max and Kate yelled. Bailey was still chortling and chanting my name, but I don't know that they expected a reply from him anyway. I have. To my 𝐴𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐿 𝐷𝐿𝐿. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing 𝐿𝐢𝐳𝐧𝐰 enthusiasm. Turning to face the kids. The best idea. I watched Max's face turn skeptical while Kate's eyes filled with excitement. What? Put on dresses and makeup like a girl? Max asks sarcastically. I reached over and flicked his nose. No, but if that's what you consider the best idea. I trailed off. His eyes widened in embarrassment as he shook his head. I was kidding. Your idea is probably fine. He amended. Anyone else wanna get smart with me? My hands on my hips. Me, I heard a voice from behind me. I turned and saw Gabriel beaming from behind me. I rolled my eyes. Well, too bad. You don't get any say in what we are doing today, I announced to him, turning back around to face the kids. Hi, Gabriel. Max grinned. I snorted. He looked up to my boyfriend a little too much. It was obvious in the way he looked at Gabe that he wanted to be just like him. Max, I want to hear the idea. Kate shushed him, hitting his arm. I pretended not to see it and moved on. We are going to make Christmas decorations. Smiling when all the kids looked excited enough. Bailey was squatting down with hands clenched in tight little fists and smiling wide, which meant he was pooping or he was pumped. I chose to believe it was the second option. We spent a wonderful 2 hours cutting out paper snowflakes, making ornaments, and listening to favorite silly Christmas songs. Watching Gabriel with the kids filled my heart with longing. I couldn't help but hope that maybe I would one day be able to see him like that with our own kids. My train of thought embarrassed me, but I couldn't help it. When they left, I walked slowly back inside my apartment, swiping all of the paper scraps off the counter and into a trash bin. You are going to make a wonderful mother. Sweet words whispered in my ear as warm arms wrapped around me from behind. I closed my eyes in bliss and leaned back against his strong chest. You want to know what I kept thinking about that whole time? I whispered back. I kept thinking about how much I love you, about how much our kids are going to love you, about how blessed I am to be able to love you. His hold on me tightened and he pressed a gentle kiss to the curve of my neck. Viola, there are a few things I have to tell you, Gabe said softly. I turned in his arms and peered up at him. What is it? Rubbing my cold nose to the base of his throat. I haven't explained marking to you yet, is what he said. I pulled away. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nelben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nelben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Marking what? I wondered. Werewolves. He paused and sighed, opening his brightened warm eyes to look at me. When we meet our mates, we mark them. What does that mean? You write your name on my forehead in Sharpie. You give me a hickey. I have to He blushed and I smiled at his sudden bashfulness. I have to bite your neck. The smile fell. I was confused. Didn't you already do that? That was a bite of healing. It is shared only between mates, and is used to help speed up the healing process. I would bite you deeper and the scar left behind would serve as a mark to alert other males of your static and female. Taken by an alpha. Wanted. I paused, cringing. No, well, it will hurt for a moment, much like the bite of healing, but it will turn to pleasure as the marking process is incredibly intimate and sacred. It signifies that we are together forever, he explained to me. I nodded. I didn't really get it, but we came from very different backgrounds. I couldn't expect to always understand what he was saying. And you want to mark me? I guessed. He nodded, looking deeply into my eyes. Well, you can go ahead and mark me as soon as I've got a ring on my finger. I told him, sending him a smile and a wink. I love you, Gabriel expressed. Thank you for not running from me and my customs. I love you too. I won't ever run from you. Gabriel had taken me up to the village park after we cleaned my apartment. I was allowed to wander the streets only because there were many people Gabriel trusted out and about. He was stuck catching up on some work before we could go out to dinner. I was doing some intense window shopping when I looked up and saw a boy maybe a year younger than myself with a jewel in hand. My eyes filled with rage as adrenaline coursed deep through my veins. I stomped over and put on my sternest expression. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nelben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing 𝐶𝐶 enthusiasm. What do you think you are doing? I demanded in outrage. Oh, Luna, it's so good to meet you. His eyes laced with confusion and apprehension. I glared harder. 𝐿𝐷𝐿𝐬𝐩𝐿𝐬 heartfelt thanks for your unfailing 𝐀𝐥𝐄𝐬𝐧 enthusiasm. My question. My voice was hard and my eyes were serious. I forgot what you asked. The boy said in complete fear. I didn't even notice the way my guards had moved closer to me, or the way everyone on the street had stopped to stare, seemingly unable to move, heads lowered in submission toward me. What are you doing? I bit out. 𝐸𝐴, he said with a complete lack of confidence. My glare depended. Why? Because it's fun and it feels good. He reasoned poorly. I let out aloud. A non-used chuckle. Because it's fun and it feels good. I repeated mockingly. That is horrible reasoning to do something if that something could lead to a lifetime of dependence on a chemical. His face grew even more fearful than before and I felt as if I had grown 7 inches taller. While he physically towered over me, my rage had inflated my person dramatically. His face was red and he was avoiding eye contact. Hand it over, I demanded, holding out my hand. His eyes grew large and he shook his head. His hold on the 𝐾𝐜 tightening. His face clenched up as if he was resisting an urge to just deliver it to me, which was completely ridiculous. 𝐿𝐷𝐿𝐬𝐷𝐞𝐝 heartfelt thanks for your unfailing 𝐾𝐿𝐬𝐧� enthusiasm. I ordered loudly, my voice booming with authority. I watched as he shakily reached out, his eyes wide in fear and concern as he passed me his 𝐾𝐜. I fisted my own hand around the offending object and put it into my bag, zipping it up and sending the boy my most intimidating look. Do not ever 𝐾𝐜 again. Do you hear me? I asked him, my eyes wide with their seriousness. His eyes were glued to my purse in alarm. I sighed internally. He was already addicted. He couldn't part from it for even a moment. Luna, could I please just, he started, but I interrupted. You can't have it back. 𝐿𝐷𝐿𝐬𝐷𝐞𝐝 heartfelt thanks for your unfailing 𝐾𝐿𝐬𝐧� enthusiasm. It's not going to do you any good except give you a nicotine addiction. Do you know how many people struggle with addiction? Have you never seen the harmful effects it can have on someone's life? Addiction never leads to anything good. I hope your parents give you a darn good talking to when they find out about this. I am taking this straight home and lighting it on fire, I informed him, turning up my nose and turning on my heel to march away. Only then did I notice the shocked looks on the faces of Gabe's pack and the way some of them seemed to be trying to hide their laughter. I blushed and gave a little wave to everyone that had stopped to watch before I sped, walked my way back to Gabe's house. Connie, I'm ho, oh Andy, I sang loudly, giggling to myself and throwing open the front door. I heard pounding footsteps on the stairs and before I could get my coat off I was being gripped in a tight hug. I missed you. Gabriel cooed in my ear, nuzzling into my neck. Something I had noticed about him was the more stressed he felt, the more affection he seemed to crave. I didn't really mind. I loved being around him. I missed you too. Are you finally done with work? Pecking his cheek and smiling sweetly at him, his thick eyebrows raised in surprise as his eyes glazed over. Viola, his voice coming out slightly strangled. Yes, I asked defensively. I wasn't sure I liked the way his voice sounded. Did anything interesting happen while you were out today? I flushed at the memory, getting angry just thinking about it. Yes, as a matter of fact something did, I replied, stepping out of his arms and starting a walk to the living room. Gabriel followed behind me. 𝐊𝐜𝐳, he prompted, sitting on the couch while I paced in front of him. How can you allow people to use 𝐿𝐜 in your pack? I can't believe that it is acceptable for people to be allowed to cause so much harm to themselves. I walked by a boy who couldn't have been more than a year younger than me on the street, and do you know what he was doing? I yelled, disproportionately angry. Gabriel's eyes were wide in an odd mix of fear and amusement. What? Gabe asked. 𝐿𝐜. He had the audacity to ruin his life like that, right in front of me. I can't believe him. I was shouting. Gabriel looked mostly amused now. Sweetheart, I think that you should calm down. I'm sure it's fine, he started to say. Laughing, I was not feeling his mood. "I can't believe you." I whirled around, ceasing my pacing to point accusingly at him. "What?" he yelped, suddenly worried. "You had let that happen in your own pack. How on earth are you okay with letting people under your leadership make such poor decisions?" I demanded. "Well, everyone has rights to make their own choices," Gabriel reasoned. "What happened to all your talk of everyone having to defend the pack if something were to happen? How would they be able to defend us if they are high? Or if they are suffering withdrawals? How can you be okay with people losing control of their own choices? Sure, everyone is free to make their own choices, but there have to be consequences for those choices. Sometimes natural consequences aren't fair because they affect other people who did nothing wrong. I am so infuriated right now, and talking about this isn't helping to calm me down," I yelled, my eyebrows drawn together in a glare. Gabriel was sitting still and staring at me like I was a bomb set to explode. I flopped next to him on the couch. "I'm so sorry. I'm so mad about this whole thing," I grunted, laying my head in his lap and closing my eyes to take in deep breaths of his scent. His hands gently wound into my hair, lightly pulling on the strands and rubbing my head. I felt my body start to relax as he continued. "What did you do with the jewel?" Gabriel asked after it had been quiet for a little bit. I sat up immediately, my rage remembered. "I still have it. I told him I was going to light it on fire," I exclaimed. Gabriel started laughing, until I sent him a harsh glare. "Babe, that's a little extreme," he explained. "It will be therapeutic and help me calm down," I countered. "Just like, throw it on the ground. Then you can get your anger out and we can move on. Sound good?" I thought about it before nodding. I raised the jewel up in my fist, looking at Gabriel dead in the eye before I threw it with all my might at the dark wood flooring. It shattered on impact, surprising me. I had thought it would be a little more resilient. The jewel flew apart, revealing a slip of paper on the inside. "What the heck?" Bending down to pick it up, Gabriel crouched beside me, one arm around me, and we studied it together. There was a date, for a month and a half later, along with a list of names, and a location. Some names had been initialed beside. I looked up at Gabriel with wide eyes at the note I had stumbled upon. He bent over and took in a deep breath, a dark look in his eyes once he did. "Viola, we need to call Joel," he told me. I stood and pulled him up with me. "Why, what is it?" I asked him. "I'm pretty sure you just found the date, attendees, and location of the anti-group," he explained, looking at me in shock. I felt my own eyes grow large as the weight of what I had unknowingly stolen rested on my shoulders. Oh my gosh. Well, let's go call Joel. Chapter 21. Joel got to Gabriel's house about 2 minutes after Gabriel linked him. I was still in shock that I had discovered something so important in such a way, practically demanding it from the poor boy. Although I didn't really feel bad at all for my actions anymore. He was part of a group plotting against my mate, and while I appreciate freedom of speech, I am not a fan of conspiring against our government leaders. "What happened exactly?" Joel asked, as soon as he had burst through the door and thoroughly locked it behind him. I looked to Gabriel, assuming he would answer, but he was looking at me. I felt my eyes widen and my heart warm to know he loved and respected me enough to let me share the information. "I saw this kid 𝐕, explaining the whole story. "This is fantastic, Viola." Joel congratulated me, an elated expression on his face. "How?" "I found a list that confirms there is a group of people conspiring against Gabe. They know that I took their list. They are going to change the date and times," I whispered angrily. Joel shook his head, still smiling. "No, they won't," he insisted. Gabriel slid his arm around my waist and tugged so my back was pressed against his front. His arms wrapped around my body and his chin resting atop my head. I held his arms in place with my own while I gave him my most skeptical expression. "Why not?" Gabriel pressed. "Didn't you tell him that you were going to take it straight home and light it on fire?" Joel asked. My eyes widened. "I have to light it on fire then. Otherwise, They'll get suspicious. I'll need to do it outside where someone could hear or see. Good idea, babe, Gabriel said, pressing a kiss to the top of my head. And Joel has to come with me. I'll rant about how you won't let me light things on fire alone or some nonsense like that so they won't be alarmed that Joel is over. They are going to be so relieved. I was practically giddy. I knew that it should have felt bigger to me, but it honestly just felt like I was pulling a prank over on someone who deserved it and not trying to prevent a civil war among supernatural beings. She's really good at this, Joel commented to Gabriel, looking over my head. I have to get the tall blonde's attention. She likes to be complimented to her face. Thank you very much. It was quiet for another minute before I was struck by another thought. We have to put the jewel back together, with the list inside it. I informed them, pulling out my cell phone and crouching to pick up the split-apart jewel. What? No way. Gabriel denied, reaching to take the list from me. Are you serious? Yes, I am, I retorted, holding the list close to my heart. They are going to check the ashes if they are smart. If there is no trace of a paper inside of the jewel, it is obviously going to raise suspicion. Gabriel and Joel looked infuriated at the thought of having to give up the list, and I grumbled under my breath about the interaction they had with humans leading to their slowness. I took a picture of it. We have everything we need. They can have it back, I explained, snapping the last piece of the jewel in place, before grabbing Joel's arm to march him outside. I hadn't felt this powerful, this in control, in so long. I knew I was going to be feeling drained in every ounce the human being I am as soon as the adrenaline left, so I tried to take advantage of it. Be safe, sweetheart, Gabriel instructed me just before I stepped out the door. I looked back to see him at the end of the hallway by the front door, looking at me with a gaze so tormented my heart broke. As soon as I had this jewel business taken care of, I was going to take care of my man. I let go of Joel's arm, running to Gabriel and giving him a tight hug, holding him as close as I could, and pressed a kiss to his chest. I love you, I mumbled to him. His breath hitched and he kissed the top of my head, sending me back over to Joel. I love you too. Right as the door shut behind us, the bright sun hurt my eyes, so I had to squint, looking around to see if I could find anywhere suitable for a fire. Do you have a lighter on you? I asked Joel, realizing it may have been important to grab one. I interrupted. What is the use of me having to wait for you to get here before I can light this thing on fire if you don't even have a dang lighter? Sounding as annoyed as possible, Joel's eyes revealed how impressed he was with my acting, and I wanted to laugh. Should I go get one? Looking around, we were nearing the end of property, and likewise, nearing the town. We can just ask someone else if they have a lighter. Right. I wondered. It was a legitimate question. I wanted to figure out if anyone would help me out. Yeah. I can mind link the pack and explain what's going on. Someone will be here soon, he promised. Beta. I heard a voice call out. A woman, maybe 30, brilliant red hair and covered in freckles, running toward us with her hand out in front of her. She stopped running right in front of us. Luna. I gave her my most winning smile, hoping to convey friendliness. Hello. Do you have a lighter? I am trying to light this jewel on fire. I don't want anyone else to be able to jewel in this pack. Can you believe someone would just throw away their free will like that? As soon as you're addicted, you're a slave. I am doing that young man a favor by lighting this dumb thing on fire. I ranted, growing more passionate the longer I spoke. I only stopped because I heard more people coming toward me. I looked and saw a crowd of around 10 people had gathered, of all ages and genders. I do have one, the woman answered. I got distracted for a second looking to spot a constellation in her freckles before I shook my head and remembered I was having a conversation. Oh, great. Can I borrow it? What's your name? Practically bouncing on my toes. Outside I was a ball of energy, but on the inside I was freaking out because I hadn't had this much energy in years. My name is Lucy L. The woman smiled. The name sounded vaguely familiar and I wondered why. But I continued on. Great. It's nice to meet you. My name is Viola Evans. I remembered to add. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilbay. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Can I get a little space in front of me? I asked the group. They all formed a circle around me and I placed the offending object in the middle of it. Holding out my hand for the lighter, 𝐊𝐤𝐬𝐻 complied and set it lightly in my palm. I flicked the flame on before I held it right next to the jewel. Then I squealed as a thought occurred to me, jumping away and wrapping my arms around my middle peer 𝐾𝐥𝐤𝐧. A few members of the group and leapt closer to me at my sound of distress, looking ready to attack what had scared me, and the thought touched me so much I almost forgot to explain my actions. What if it explodes? I asked sheepishly, genuinely worried. The others in the group seemed to be having similar worries and looked as lost as I felt. I had to destroy it, but I suddenly was going to have to do it in a safer way. They are prone to exploding. Ma'am, one of the older gentlemen piped up. He was wearing a polo and some glasses. I thought that he looked like he had seen his share of unkindness in the world and was dishing out as much of the opposite as he could. I liked him immediately. Oh well, let's all stand back then, I instructed, making up a new plan as I went. The group did as I asked, backing about 20 feet away. What are you going to do, Luna? 𝐊𝐤𝐬𝐻 asked, sounding concerned. I felt concerned. Well, I mumbled. I was just going to light a piece of paper on fire while it's crumpled in a ball and throw it at the jewel. Joel let out a snort and I smacked his arm. Don't mock me. It's the best idea I can come up with, I retorted. Sounds brilliant, a young boy said. He looked to be about 10. I asked Joel. He rolled his eyes at me and I laughed before crumpling some paper from the pocket of my jacket into a ball and taking a deep breath. I lit the ball on fire before I launched the flaming ball towards the jewel. I waited, with a wince of anticipation on my face for 3 seconds, and I heard a pop and I opened my eyes to see a cloud of smoke over the jewel. I'll go check it out, 𝐊𝐤𝐬𝐻 volunteered immediately. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilbay. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. When you're done, can you throw it away for us? Alpha needs the Luna now, Joel asked with little room for argument in his tone. 𝐊𝐤𝐬𝐻 shouted in affirmative as I marched back towards Gabe's house with Joel in tow. I'm back. Slamming the door open, Gabriel had me in his arms immediately. Beta Joel, you're excused. I'll talk to you later, Gabriel ordered, smothering my face in his chest. I felt the adrenaline leaving my body in rushing waves, leaving me feeling drained. The door closed behind Joel and Gabriel was holding on to me impossibly tight. I felt my heart break for him all over again. After he had worked so hard to take care of his pack and treat everyone with respect and fairness, they were turning on him. It was too much stress for one person to handle. I led him to his room, through all the winding hallways and many staircases, and pushed him onto the large king-sized bed. What are you doing, my love? His voice sounding more tired than usual. I knelt over him with a determined expression on my face. I'm going to cuddle you. His plump lips parted in shock as his dark eyebrows shot up. I didn't mind his silly expression. I could see his eyes clearer. To oceans that had been through a bad storm. You're going to cuddle me, he repeated dumbly, flipping my hair over my shoulder. Isn't that what I just said? I'm going to cuddle you so hard. Flopping down on top of him and flinging my arms around him. He grunted as he caught me, and I only felt bad for a moment before his arms were readjusting me, squeezing me even tighter. I let one hand trail to his back and scratched his back with the tips of my fingernails, watching the gooseness appear and disappear on his tan skin. I felt myself growing sleepy at the soothing action, and Gabriel's hand massaging my scalp wasn't helping either. I let out a quiet moan, followed quickly by a yawn. I was completely exhausted. Gabriel's echoing yawn reminded me that both of us had had a long day. That's it, I mumbled. What's it? Gabriel murmured back. Sleep over and lifted just this once. I yawned out, my eyes sliding closed. Good choice, Gabriel complimented. curling around me and pulling a blanket over the top of us. Chapter 20. To how are things going between you and your boyfriend? Morgan asked me during a lull in customer flow. I flushed but then allowed myself to indulge in some girl talk. Heaven knows I could use at least something normal going on in my life. Really good, I confessed, smiling bashfully. She squealed like the school. Girl, she has urged me to 𝐿𝐴𝐵. Girls, you can talk while we are waiting for more business, but keep those noises to a minimum for goodness sake. Maurice scolded lightly, swatting at us with a dish towel as she walked past us and into the back. 𝐿𝐴𝐵, 𝐊𝐿𝐴𝐵. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing enthusiasm. Morgan laughed, grabbing my arm and tugging me to sit with her at a booth so. She prompted, leaning forward eagerly and resting her chin on her palms. We love each other, I began, wincing when she gasped. 𝐿𝐴𝐵, 𝐊𝐿𝐴𝐵. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing enthusiasm. So sorry. I just got really excited for you. It's all right. Well, we've talked about marriage, I added. I waited for a reaction, but I looked up to see her mouth wide open in shock. Haven't you only been dating a few months? She finally sputtered out. I nodded. Yeah, but I love him, and I know that he loves me, and I also know that I won't ever stop loving him, so it would be pointless to put it off any longer. I tried to explain. Morgan still looked skeptical. Are you sure you aren't pregnant? This time it was my turn to gasp. Yes, I am sure, I sputtered. We haven't, I wouldn't. I am a virgin, I hissed out finally. So you are getting married fast because you're horny but you don't want to compromise your values? Morgan asked, still confused. I turned bright red. No, I would marry him because I want to spend the rest of my forever with him. I would marry him because I love him. I would marry him because he's a good man. 𝐿𝐴𝐵, 𝐊𝐿𝐴𝐵. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing enthusiasm. Horn dog, Morgan teased, starting to stand from our booth. The bell above the front door rang and she sent me a wide smile before slipping into her customer service voice. I shook my head at her antics, smiling to myself. I really liked that girl. Why hadn't you told me yet? I held in my scream of frustration by spinning around in my desk chair at home as fast as I could. I watched the colors of my bedroom swirl together, only adding to my growing headache. I was going to, but it's just been so crazy. She's getting worse, and I don't know what to do. I helplessly tried to explain to my raging mother over the phone. I stopped spinning, standing slowly and making my way over to my bed to flop down stomach first. I had 𝐷 and development textbook open on my desk and sadly concluded that I would have to be done reading about that for the night. Oh, so my own mother dying seemed to escape your mind, she yelled. I winced, holding the phone a little away from my ear. I got angry when she said that. I couldn't help it. Yes, Mom, I have been dealing with so much out here you wouldn't believe the things that have escaped my mind. I love Grandma and I am heartbroken. But guess what? Just like my own father dying seems to have left your memory. My dad died. Mom, you remarried. You replaced him. I didn't. 𝐿𝐴𝐵, 𝐊𝐿𝐴𝐵. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing enthusiasm. I could feel her anger through the phone lines as well. It was tangible and made me cuddle into my decorative pillow a little tighter. I didn't replace him. I loved your father. I married someone else because my life moved on. But Viola, she's my mother. And you should have told me the minute you found out. Mom shouted. Or maybe you should have been there. I yelled back. I immediately wanted to take it back. I suddenly could empathize with her. She was my mom. She was my mom and her mom. My grandma. I'm sorry, I whispered. That was crossing a line. I know you're upset and you're allowed to be. Is there anything else you haven't told me? Mom grumbled, moving on from our fight. She didn't acknowledge that she had forgiven me, but I knew that in her own way she had. At least for the time being, We were at a truce. I suddenly recalled that she knew nothing of my relationship. Of course I couldn't tell her that he wasn't human, or that his people were on the brink of a mutiny civil war. But I could reach out and let her know that I was dating someone seriously. I paused, trying to figure out the most delicate way to phrase it. I'm dating this guy. There was no delicate way. Oh, for how long now? Mom asked. She's always been interested in my love life. Back home she had tried to set me up with a few boys from our hometown. I knew that their moms were in my mom's book club or brunch group, but I knew those boys. I didn't want to date someone who thought that putting other people down and being every bit a stereotypical Indiana boy with no respect for anyone but themselves was the ideal lifestyle. A few months. Oh well. A pause. And then. That's a while. What's his name? Gabriel. Mom, I started. Then I stopped. What is it, sweetie? There was something in her voice as she asked that I hadn't heard for a long time, and it made me feel oddly emotional. I love him. I admitted quietly. Just thinking about him made me smile. I hadn't seen him in a day or two since he'd been busy with Joel working to figure out what actions to take about the secret meeting I was trying to keep up with, studying for finals that would be in a week. Well then, I would love to meet him, she replied, just as softly. There was her olive branch, and I would be a fool to pass it up. Can I invite him to Christmas? I asked timidly. I knew it may be hard for her to convince my stepdad Paul, but I was hoping she'd do it. I think that is a wonderful idea. Honey, she sighed, and I knew what was coming even before it came out of her mouth. She always sighed before hanging up. The phone call ended on a slightly awkward, but not altogether unpleasant note, and I counted it as a win. I glanced back up at my still open textbook, and then down at my phone and sighed. Werewolf development was a little more important to me at the moment. Viola. I felt as if I had taken a breath after months of drowning. Gabe, I whispered, not bothering to hide the longing in my voice. Hey, sweetheart, he said quietly. I blushed and rolled onto my side with a big smile on my face. Hello. How had your day been? Kicking my legs back and forth. Good. I missed you all day though. I missed you too. I love you. I told him. I could hear him smile over the phone. I love you too. So much. Have you eaten yet? Stern. I grabbed a slice of pizza with Michael before he had to go to work. I told Gabriel. I don't like that guy, he replied. Well, that stuff. He's one of my only friends and I am allowed to have those. I said 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐷. I heard him chuckle and agree. It was quiet and peaceful for a few moments. Both of us feeling better by hearing the other's voice. I hated to ruin the silence, but I need to ask him before I lost my nerve. What do you think about maybe coming to visit for a while I'm back in Indiana for Christmas? I asked Gabe, wringing my hands together nervously. You're going to Indiana for Christmas? Sounding heartbroken. I wanted to cry. I didn't like not seeing him for one day. How would I last the whole winter break? I have to. I didn't go home for Thanksgiving and I promised my mom. I whispered, feeling saddened, dejected. Even if he said yes, I wouldn't get to spend the whole break with him. Just a few days. I have always believed the holidays to be a time best spent with loved ones, so that they would be full of joy. But I was suddenly dreading this holiday season, my heart longing to be close to the one I loved most. To 𝐊𝐴𝐺𝐸 𝐷𝐸. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Oh, he mumbled. I want to. I really do. I knew there was a but before he finished. But I don't know how long I can leave the pack. He sounded really torn up about it. That was good, because my stomach felt like it was full of rocks and my throat felt like it had closed up. My eyes were kind of burning too. I took a deep breath in to help get rid of the shakiness in my voice. That's all right. No, it wasn't. But he was helpless. I understood that he couldn't just up and leave. I just wished that he could have. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. His voice was full of sadness, only making me feel worse. No, really. I'll be okay, I said as cheerfully as I could muster. I wouldn't. And he knew that. But I think we both needed me to pretend. Can I come over tonight? I wanted to say yes. All I wanted in that moment was to be held by him and cry. I was feeling way too overwhelmed to be healthy, but I knew he must be feeling worse. And then I saw that stupid textbook again and I knew I couldn't say yes. Are you busy? I want to say yes. But I haven't finished my reading assignment and with finals coming up. I trailed off. He let out a sigh as deep as I had ever heard and it made me smile. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilbel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I wish you good luck then. I should let you get to that. Gabriel said. Goodbye. I said softly. Goodbye, sweetheart. He said back. I love you. I whispered thickly. He echoed the words back to me before the phone clicked off and my loudspeaker from my ear. I hadn't felt so small since I had moved out. I loved Gabriel with all my heart, but being with him was bringing new levels of heartache. Of course I would rather have him and the heartache than not have him, but it was still a horrible feeling. I decided to pull out my journal, a little dusty from being forgotten in the craziness of the last few months, and write out my feelings. Dear journal, hello, I'm back. I don't nanny full-time anymore. I work part-time at a cafe down the road from my apartment in campus. I have a boyfriend. His name is Gabriel. I am in love with him. Things sound great. Right. Hold on. Here is the list of things that are really hard and bad things right now. Grandma is dying of cancer. Gabriel is the leader of a group of people, half of which want to overthrow him because he saved their lives. It's complicated. Finals are next week. Gabriel's parents are anti-humanish, so he hasn't told them about me. I need to get in a good cry, but I haven't been able to. And I can feel it building. I just know that when it does happen I'm going to explode. I have way too much stress to deal with. I know it's only for things, but those are big things. So excuse me for feeling overwhelmed. I just want to be able to cry it out while I'm cuddling Gabriel, but he has his own set of things to worry about. I stopped writing and had to laugh. I felt so dramatic. I knew there were people who had dealt with harder things than what I was struggling with, and I was praying to the universe that I would finally get a little miracle to lighten the load. My dad used to call them tender mercies. In that moment, as I stared helplessly at my human development textbook and tried to force myself to focus, all I wanted was my own tender mercy.